Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Six Figure Side Hustle podcast. I am here today with Alison Mclean, the business coach to wellness entrepreneurs.
You got it.
Hi, Alison. Thank you for joining us today. My first question is, what does a business coach to wellness entrepreneurs do?
Yes, love it. Direct. Essentially, I help the wellness entrepreneur, which can be many facets of people, a yoga teacher, health coach, combination of. I'm also a physical therapist, so healthcare provider that's more in the cash-based side of things, grow a profitable business.
Okay, cool. Thank you for clearing that up just so we all are on the same page. So let's journey back a little bit. How did you get involved, or what led you to this choice in careers?
Yeah, so I started off as a massage therapist 20 years ago and evolved into becoming a physical therapist. I have my doctorate in physical therapy and also becoming a yoga teacher and certified yoga therapist. And I did that for a number of years. I had my own brick and mortar clinic, which is successful. And during that time, I started getting requests to, oh, I love your business. Can you show me how to start my own business? So then I added in business coaching as well. And essentially also during that time, I learned a lot because I was working a lot round the clock, evenings and weekends. And I ended up having a health diagnosis at that time that opened my eyes to, okay, you can be profitable, but if you don't have your health or you're not seeing your family, like, what's the point? So I had to restructure my business, and now I'm actually more profitable than before while working less hours. So that's also what I bring into my coaching.
Okay, wow. Yeah, that sounds like a lot of entrepreneurs who think, I have to give it 100% to my business all the time, and that leaves 0% for your health or, other things that should be a focus. So you really try to incorporate a work-life balance. Is that fair to
Yeah.
say? I get some pushback sometimes when I use that.
Yeah, that term. It is because, it's elusive. It's always changing. Some weeks work out great where it is maybe that I don't know the exact percentage. In my mind, I work when my daughter's in school and and she goes to aftercare. For the number of hours after school and aftercare depends on my day or sometimes what her and I have planned together. But essentially, I work between the hours of 9 to 4 or 8 to 4 or something like that. And I have weekends off and some days I work a shorter day and I grab her early. It can vary week to week, but compared to before, I used to teach 7:30 a.m. classes, so I couldn't even drop her off at school. I taught 8:30 p.m. classes, so I couldn't put her to bed. I led yoga teacher trainings and certifications on the weekends, so I wasn't seeing her a lot of weekends. So a change to this is 100% better for her, for me, and for the people that I serve because I actually show up more fulfilled. I have more energy. So it's better quality sessions that I actually give now.
That's interesting because it's completely counterintuitive to what we would think: work less hours and make more money. Do you kind of have a little bit of a framework that you give your clients, and like how to maybe figure out what is the best work-life balance? Like, do you take them through anything where, maybe we can
Yeah,
dive
sure.
into a little bit
Yeah,
better?
break it down? Sure, I call it soul scheduling. So we start there first because I work with two different types of entrepreneurs. The entrepreneur that's just starting out, so maybe they are there, it is their side hustle, they have a full or part-time job. And then I also work with entrepreneurs that have been doing it for a number of years and even have a team. Regardless, we start looking at like, okay, what is their schedule currently and what is their ideal schedule? And we map that out. And then we look at the numbers because the numbers have to match the schedule to be profitable. So for example, I had someone that came into my world and she didn't want to do number one-to-one, so private sessions, because she felt like she didn't have enough time to do private sessions. And she wanted to launch a membership, which is great. Memberships can be very successful. It's a great way to scale and work with a number of people. However, she wanted to launch a membership at $49 a month and earn a certain amount of revenue per month while working in this ideal schedule. When we looked at the mapping the two together, the ideal schedule could fit with the membership. But then when we looked at the numbers of how much money she wanted to make per month, her email list didn't support that. The number of people that were on her email list, for example, if she wanted to hit 4K months, $4,000 a month, right? So divided by $49, I'll do it right now. And I need to use a calculator because my brain isn't so math centric, right? That's
calculators.
It's 81 clients a month she would have to enroll. And her email list had 300 subscribers on it. So it's not a match. She could possibly do it 1 month if she had a very high open rate, a very engaged market. They were very active, and she for sure could do that 1 month, but to do it again and again and again, it's not sustainable. So at that point, then we have to revisit things. What does she want to prioritize? What is the most important to her? Is it bringing in the $4,000 a month? Is it the schedule that she wants to maintain, or is it the membership? But right now, all can't be done at the same time. So what do we want to prioritize? And then keeping that ideal vision for the big picture, meaning we can do it at some point, just not right now, all of them. So that's the point where entrepreneurs sometimes get a little sticky because they want it all right now.
I think, yes, definitely that is true. We want it all right now. And speaking of my own self, and this is very helpful for me, we don't even really ask ourselves those 3 questions you just kind of asked for. We kind of all have an income goal in mind, but we never have a scheduling goal because we've been trained that, like, sleep when you're dead, like work to get to this level. And then once you reach this level, then maybe you could take a break, or that's at least the picture of success.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be happy when I'm successful. I'll rest when I'm successful. And the problem with that is it leads to burnout and exhaustion because it's just not sustainable. We're human beings, not robots. So it's learning how to bring the happiness and the rest while you're growing your business, because then it's scalable, it's sustainable. And this does not mean you still have to work, right? You still have, I think sometimes also we make it so black and white. Either I'm going to do nothing and live this lavish lifestyle where I'm traveling all the time and bring in money somehow, or I'm working around the clock, when really it's like you got to put your butt in the seat or, behind the treatment table, if that's what you do, and actually put the hours in. At the same time, you got to have a stop point, and be like, okay, at 3:00, I'm turning off my entrepreneurial brain. I'm going to go pick my kid up from school. And now I'm in mom mode. And it's just like having that ability to do that.
Yeah, it's almost, dare I say, a discipline to be able to do that, because
Mm-hmm.
there's always going to be an email that comes through or a call that
Mm-hmm.
comes through. You're like, oh, this will only take a second. Let me just do
Yes.
this now and get it out the way. And then, there's always a never ending list of things that you could find to do. But
100%.
you hold your clients accountable to themselves and their scheduling, it sounds like.
Yeah, yeah. And for them, because we meet an hour a week, I do 1-to-1 right now. And I do provide texting support via Slack in between so they can reach out to me if they get stuck. But ultimately, they have to understand the why they would want to, because it's uncomfortable, right? To implement like a boundary that may be new to them, like not checking because we have urges, we're wired through feedback to like check our phone continuously or Facebook, because it's just like right now we're getting a positive feedback loop from it. So to not go feed into the urge, I should say, and be completely present with your child, for example, sometimes in the beginning it feels uncomfortable because it's different and new. And your nervous system maybe even interpret that as being unsafe. And you want to go back to the hustle mode. But you have to remember the why and redirect your brain to being like, nope, I have a process for checking emails tomorrow. It'll get done. I trust myself to come back to work and get all that I need to get done in the work time that I have scheduled. So right now I can be present. And then you retrain your nervous system. You retrain your brain.
Yeah, can you speak a little bit more to that? I found that really
Mm-hmm.
interesting when you said that kind of shutting it off is going
Mm-hmm.
to activate something in your nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's what I'm feeling sometimes when it's like, okay, I'm going to enjoy a movie. And then it's like, but what else could I be doing? This
Uh-huh.
need to, I guess, always be productive.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Yeah,
and
it could
this is
be.
happening on the nervous system level.
Yes, exact. So much is the nervous system. I think this really is the new frontier of science. It's already in a lot of the healing and coaching modalities. And for sure, it'll play in business world. So if someone is trying to unwind with their partner and watch a Netflix movie, for example, and their brain is just going, like it could be, it's asking yourself why. So first of all, for me personally, what I do is if I try to name the emotion of what I'm feeling, which is very different from me because I used to just like push it all to the side or try to resist it. So is it guilt that I'm feeling? Like spending this luxurious time with my partner, unwinding and just relaxing? Is it guilt that I'm feeling that I didn't do enough? Is it fear of being lazy? Like, what is it for yourself? What emotion you're feeling, name it, feel it in your body, and then track down the why. Because sometimes if you can track down the why of the thought, for example, or a belief, like sometimes it's a money story. So it could be like fear of not doing enough because you won't bring in enough money then. And that's leading to scarcity. Then you can, when you know the why, the thought or the belief behind it, then you can solve for that. And that I usually do like not when I'm doing a Netflix movie. What I usually do is I have journals like all around my house, or sometimes at that point, if I don't get sucked into my phone, I'll jot a note in my phone. Usually, I'll just text myself like I was feeling guilty because I was uh, thought I didn't do enough that day, for example. I wasn't productive enough that day. Then when I come back to like my self coaching time or journaling time, or maybe I'll bring it to my own coach, like then I'll like work it through during that time. Outside of watching Netflix. But at least I know if I have it out of my head and written down, I can figure it out later. And that allows me to be more present, grounded, and calm with my partner. The other thing that can happen in the moment is like a thought will come up like, okay, I'm just being lazy. And then I'll think about it and I'm like, that's just such a crock of bullshit, really, because like I I worked a lot this week. I signed clients, I was on a podcast, like I got some consults. Like there's no reason why I should be beating myself up for relaxing right now. Like I don't need to believe that story at all. So if you know, like if you just take the time to investigate, then you'll know one way or the other. Okay, I can work through this at another point. Maybe it's from a generational story I've learned from my parents. Maybe it's from like my own experiences in life. I'm having these thoughts or beliefs and I can work it through myself or with a coach. Or I can just decide like, that's silly. I don't need to think that right now. It makes no sense.
That's a very interesting framework for working through some of these issues that you like. It doesn't really come up when you're reading all these great business books and stuff, like,
Mm-hmm.
how to overcome some of these things, how to be
Mm-hmm.
present. And you don't realize how important that is until you're getting this negative feedback for your family. Like, I can't
Yes.
watch the movie, but you're on your phone, or
Yes.
you get these
And
little,
you're like, I'm just trying to work to provide for the family.
you think that you're doing the right thing, but you feel guilty. Like when you're
Mm-hmm.
at work, you feel guilty for not
Yes.
being with your family, and when you're with your family, you feel like you're not being productive and not achieving the end goal.
100%. Yeah, it's
Is
that
that
catch
what a lot of your
22.
clients suffer
Yes.
through?
Yeah, 100%. And it is. It's a skill. It's a skill, and it's a skill we're not taught in school. We're not taught growing up. Like the books, like you say, teach us like, or you know, preach like be present, stop the phone, but then you got to like actually take it that layer deeper and sort these feelings, thoughts, and beliefs out. And that is the key to maintaining it.
That yeah, that's very useful. Those are definitely some tips that I will employ. I was laughing when you said you text yourself, because I text myself all the time to remember things, like, oh, don't forget to return
Uh-huh.
to this. So I thought that was a really good tip to
Yeah.
feel the feeling but then kind of work back through it. And you also mentioned that you have a coach, and that's
Mm-hmm.
something I always like to explore, because I see common themes of successful people still getting guidance and coaching support.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So could you speak a little bit to that? Because I think people think there's a success level or a monetary level where you should just be okay to do things on your own.
Yeah, 100%. And it's funny because my habit, in the beginning, when I first started my business, I would kind of ask my husband, I'm like, I'm going to invest in this coach. What do you think? And now I just tell him. But in the beginning, he used to be like, when does this coaching stuff end? Like, when do you learn what you needed to learn? Like, when does it stop? And now I just tell him I'm investing in this and this coaching is not stopping. Because, and in the beginning it was harder because I didn't really have the results. But now like he sees like I'm more profitable, I work less, I'm happier, I'm healthier. So and I tell him like the reason why I'm here is because I continued with the coaching. If I stop the coaching, then I mean, there's one thing of like taking a break. You go through a life circumstance and like maybe you need a few months off or just to integrate and process things or whatever. But it's that is different from like stopping completely. And essentially, in my mind, if I were to say I'm done with coaching, I've learned all that I needed to learn, that means I stop my own growth. And at no point do I want to stop my own growth, because if I stop my own growth, then the growth of my business will stop, because I for sure see a direct correlation from my business growth and my self evolution growth and just general business tactics, right? For me, coaching means learning business tactics and working on my mindset and letting go of past stories or beliefs or thoughts that no longer serve me. It is that combination. So maybe you might decide to stop if you feel that you've achieved all that you wanted to achieve in business and have no more room to grow, which I find is on the very select few. But the coaches that I choose to work with, they're at multi-million dollar levels and they still have their own coaches and they're continuing to grow. So that's kind of the model that I'm behind.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And you brought up a really interesting, I guess, thing that a lot of entrepreneurs or people going down this path may have had this same conversation with their spouse or significant other, where you're investing in yourself and your growth, and the monetary results aren't there, and that's causing
Mm-hmm.
friction. So, can you?
Mm-hmm.
It seems like, you guys made it through very successfully, and now you're on the
Mm-hmm.
other side. So when you have that money coming in, it's easy to be like, well,
Mm-hmm.
this is a, but before you reach any monetary results and you're still putting
Mm-hmm.
out money, can you go through kind of how you were able to work through, and maybe, I know we all need tips on this, because when you're when
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
an
It's a
entrepreneur,
hard
you have
conversation to have. Yeah, 100%. So, in the beginning, if you're just starting out, or even if you've been in business for years. So I remember I hired a coach for a year. So I did 2 rounds with her. And I went in thinking that my goal with her was to make more money. But at that time, that's when I was hustling. So I was teaching that 7 a.m. class, the evening class. I was teaching on the weekends, and there was no way I could make more money. I did not have that energetic capacity to hold the space for more people. Like I just didn't. And so that was actually blocking me making more money. So when I worked with her for a year, it took me almost a year to clean up my schedule. And the reason why it took me a year is because the primary source of my leads were from all those classes I was teaching and those trainings. So I had to phase them out sequentially. Otherwise, I would dry up my lead source. So for me, that took a while. For others, it might take a much shorter time. But during that year, the first 6 months, for sure, my revenue did not grow. It stayed the same. It might have even dropped some because I was shifting through the plateaus. And it could have been easy to look at the coaching and say, oh, it's not working. And that is only if you comparing the result of your coaching, the only result is revenue. So you have to be clear when you go into coaching as being like, what is the result I want for this coaching, and discussing it with your coach. So for me, when I onboard a new client, the first thing we do in the first couple of sessions is really clarify those goals. And we have number goals, and then we also have like our self concept goals, which may be learning how to shut off our entrepreneurial brain, going back to that other conversation. Um, and it's being clear that sometimes that the number goals and our self-concept goals don't happen at the same time. But as long as you're progressing in one of those or both of those, then you know that the coaching is working. However, there is a difference that if you do invest and you're not seeing that progress in either one of those, then maybe you do have to talk to the coach and something isn't working. Maybe that program or that coach or how you're implementing it or not implementing, it's not a good fit, or something needs to be shifted, right? Because you do want to see a return on your investment. You don't want to just invest blindly. So when you are investing, you do want to see a return, but just know that the return isn't always financial. And you want to be clear on that for yourself. Also, sometimes there's a lag time. So, for example, one of the first masterminds I invested in, I didn't have the money to invest in it at that time. So I was always playing catch up, meaning I'd put it on a credit card, or I'd take it out of savings and invest in it. And then I would make it back that month. And I did that I gave myself 6 months, or you can say a year. I did that for 9 months, and then I blew it out of the water. I started doubling and tripling my income. But there was a lag time. So that's up to you and your risk tolerance. Like, how much do you want to give yourself in that lag time? Are you more on the conservative end? Or can you be okay with playing the catch-up game and then put a deadline on the catch-up game? How long do you want to do that? For a year? And again, I stayed with it for that long because I was seeing progress, but I invested heavily. So it took a little bit longer to like be on the profitable side of that.
That's that's very good advice for those of us seeking coaching. I thought we were going to talk about how to start a six-figure business as a coach, but this actually evolved into how to really receive coaching, which I think is equally important. You can use a lot of the advice you gave from either side, in that, we expect immediate results. Like, well, I swipe the card, where's my ROI? And that it's okay to give yourself a little bit of grace and flexibility in making that money back.
Yeah. But you do want to hold yourself accountable to making it back, and doing all that's within your control to make it back. Meaning, it's easy to blame the coach, or it's easy to blame the program that didn't work for me. But here's the thing: if you've invested like 3 or 4 programs or coaches and they all didn't work, what's the common denominator? The hard answer is you, right? So then you have to look at what's happening within you. Are you are you only consuming and not implementing? Are you going back to the mindset, are you allowing the fears, the doubts, maybe imposter syndrome to stand in the way? Like, what's really going on? And that's the harder work. So you do want to make sure, like, you're not just always investing. You want to trust yourself and hold yourself to be accountable to make that money back.
I think that that's really good. And when you speak to holding yourself accountable, what does that look like in, black and white, not really the gray area? Because we hear about accountability, and how do you hold yourself accountable? Like, what does that look like?
So for me, it's working in my working hours. So if I say I'm going to work when my daughter's in school, and my work day, for example, is like 8 to 4 or 9 to 4 or something like that, then I'm going to work. Unless I'm like sick or my daughter's sick or something like that. I'm going to show up and I'm going to work in those hours. And it's not just busy work. It's revenue producing work. So I don't do any paid advertisement right now. So for me, it's connecting with people. It's developing relationships, not from the place of like trying to sign a client and being graspy and weird, but just like connecting with people and meeting with people and talking with people, and doing Facebook Lives and all the things that can help to generate clients. And so I know, for me, my business, what brings in money. And that's how I hold myself accountable. Because it's easy for me to be in my working day and go consume more content, or listen to a podcast, or go into my own coach's like program and just listen to all her videos. But then I'm hiding. I'm not showing up, and I'm not going to bring in revenue. So then I'll be less likely to have that return on the investment. So for me, I have like usually 3 priorities of the day of something that I know will have a likelihood of bringing in money. And before I do like the consuming of the content, or what I consider like fun stuff, I will do the revenue producing stuff. Not to say, I said that with hesitation, because it's not like I want to work from force or pressure either. So I've learned how to make some of my revenue producing activities fun and creative. So I'm not just like having to drag myself through my day, because that's not enjoyable either.
Yeah, no, but that's very good advice because I mean, even myself, I'll be like, well, I'm watching a course. It's not like I'm watching, soap operas or something. I'm doing something for my business. But you're right,
Mm-hmm.
nobody's going to pay you to watch a course or to listen, to a podcast or anything like that. So you kind of have separated out, I'm not just working in general, I'm working at these activities, and you've kind of
Mm-hmm.
set them out. So every day you kind of have three or so main
Mm-hmm.
accomplishments that you set out this week. And is that kind of how you know, not that you could check out, but kind of like, you know what, I met my goals for this day.
Mm-hmm.
And now maybe I have like a little bit of more free time. Maybe now I can listen to a podcast or.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's kind of how I do it. I don't want to, again, I try not to do it because I have a story from my past, like just how we grew up, where if we weren't productive, then we were kind of lazy and we had all these lists, and then we could like play with our friends, that sort of thing. And if I operate from that mentality, then my business, it doesn't feel fun, and I get into hustling mentality. So for me, it's learning how to find flow with my business, where if I really don't feel in the mindset of connecting, then maybe I'll watch and I'll consume content that will spark that inspiration, but it's not hours. It might just be 5 or 10 minutes to shift the energy, and then I'll be in my flow and I'll go do the revenue producing activities. So it doesn't have to be like this rigid structure. It can also have room for flexibility and flow too.
I like that. I like that advice for having to, when you don't feel it, don't force it, but
Mm-hmm.
try to find something that will shift you back into flow, because I do
Mm-hmm.
feel like it's very easy to get into a downward spiral, but it's very difficult to climb out of that spiral. Like once you
Mm-hmm.
hit the bottom, it's like, all right, well, I'm here now. I might as well grab the remote and some ice cream versus try, you know.
Totally. Yep. Yep.
Okay. Well, I feel like you've given us so much really good advice in how to operate in a business, how to find a work-life balance, how to work with a coach. I feel like a lot
Mm-hmm.
of us get coaches or we get into mentorship programs and we don't know how to function or get the most out of it.
Yeah.
There's no success, there's no finish line. It's, you, you even speaking of myself who's invested in a lot, I didn't really know what that looked like. It's like, okay, well, I
Mm-hmm.
invested all this money, so it should come flowing right in any second now because I invested in myself, and that's the first step. And then when it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
happen, I never really questioned the coaching, because if you can see other people having results, it's the
Yes.
coaching.
Yes.
But I didn't really know what that looked like for, myself. Like, well, how do I get these results? And you let me realize I never really had an outcome or a target goal.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's one thing, like if that's not part of the coach's protocol, you can still do it for yourself. And for me, for that coach I did invest in 1 year, it was, I realized after the fact. So because I looked at first, I was beating myself up. I was like, I just invested for a year and I didn't get my money back. And then I thought about it, and for a while, because I realized I was like in a negative funk because of it. And then I was like, wait a minute. Like my whole entire schedule changed. Like I am home now on the weekends. I am home now in the evenings. That's like priceless to me, because now I'm not missing moments with my daughter. Like I can look back now when she's 18 and like off and hopefully independent. We'll see. Like I can look back and be like, I was there for her. We made so many memories, and I was not like hustling around the clock during that time. And I am so grateful. So I got all that I needed and more from that year of coaching. And that's what taught me to like, okay, I just need to go into every container, like very specific on what is my target for that length of time working in that program.
Yeah, I really like that. And I'm also going to take some of those steps and relook at some of the programs I've either joined in the past or am in right now, and not just
Mm.
look at it through the eyes of how much money did I make, but like how much progress did I make? You know, like,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I didn't make
Yeah.
$1 million, but I do have XYZ finished, or I do think differently about that. And I think that's often overlooked from coaching.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like
Yeah,
if you made me
$100%.
$1 million, it was a waste of money and it was a scam. But like you just said, having control of your time and having set working hours and having the ability to turn off that need to be productive, or to have something to fall back on, an activity to do when those thoughts come up, I think that is priceless.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting your mind
Yeah. Yeah,
control.
and that created the space for me to hit bigger revenue goals. Because soon after that, that's when I doubled, tripled my income. So it created the space where if I tried to force through that, it would have crashed and burned. So I had to do that work for first. And sometimes we don't know what work that is that we need to do ourselves till we're like doing it. That's
Yeah.
the tricky part. That's the benefit of a coach too.
Right, right, because they're from the outside looking in, and it's very easy for them to pick up on patterns, even that you don't recognize in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
They'll pick it up, they'll call you on it, and help you work through it. So I do like that side of coaching, but I do think that many of us don't know how to be coached. But
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
all right, so now we're going to get into the Rainmaker round. I'm going to ask you a few
Awesome.
questions. I know you have a busy day, or not overly busy, but
That's right.
you probably have, you want to work on your business and finish your
Yes.
tasks. So I just like to ask people, what is the last conference you attended, and what is the biggest gem you learned from that conference?
Mm. Yeah, so the last conference I attended was with my coach. It was a 3-day mastermind event, and I did it virtually. And I figured out the 3 essentials that I wanted to focus on for my business for this quarter, which is huge because I have a hard time. I get easily distracted, like shiny object. I'm like, squirrel, ooh, that looks good. But for me to like, you know, focus only, like constrained to those 3 topics where everything I learn, everything I do comes back to these 3 things. Now I'm seeing a lot of growth in those 3 areas, which will flow over into other areas of my business. But learning that focus has been really helpful.
Okay, so pick 3 things to focus on per quarter and really
Mm.
hone in on those. Okay, I
Mm-hmm.
love that. That is good, actionable advice.
Yeah.
And we are at the start of a new quarter, the final quarter
Mm-hmm.
of 2022. So that would be a really good thing to figure out, what 3 things do we all want to focus on to bring in the new year. So great advice,
Mm-hmm.
Allison. What book are you reading right now?
I'm reading Gap Selling by Keenan. And I like it. He writes mostly to the salesperson who works maybe for a corporation or like a SaaS company, a software company, or something like that. But a lot of his selling process is very complementary to how my own coach teaches consultations, how to work through consultations. So to see it in writing from a slightly different perspective, I'm getting a ton of useful information from that book that I've heard before, but now I can like add more details to or refine. I have a lot of pages dog marked, so it's great for the service-based provider as well.
Okay. And that's gaps. You said gap selling.
Gap selling. Yeah, GAP selling.
All right, I'm gonna pick it up because
Yeah, it's
we
a
can
good one.
never have enough books about selling because we're all selling something all the time.
100%.
What are words you live by?
That's a great question. It depends on the moment and the day, but usually it's I'll figure it out. Whatever, if it's a health diagnosis that catches me by surprise, if it's an area of my business that I'm struggling with, or as a mom, like we're all learning there, I'll figure it out.
Oh, I
It's all
love
right. I've got this one step at a time.
perfect. Give yourself one piece of advice you wish you knew at the start of your 6+ figure journey.
Mm, keep going. Like just believe in yourself. Take action from the belief instead of the fear that it won't work.
Okay, and finally, how can we follow you? How can we? I'm sure there's a lot of service-based listeners and wellness coaches. That's I'm really excited to see how it is evolving because people used to make fun of me when I would go to some of these different practitioners, and they're like, that snake oil, and I'm like, oh well, I feel better about it. But now it's so much more mainstream
Yeah,
that I kind of feel
100%.
vindicated. Like, see, now you're paying
Yes.
to do
Yeah,
these.
like I was the leader here.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you would be a really great coach for some people. I know you limit it to the wellness coaches, but I even got
Mhm.
so much information
Oh, good.
and
Yeah,
actually,
yeah. I work. I mean, I work with a lot of service. But I have worked with an interior designer before. I've worked with currently I work with a dating coach, and she's killing it over in France. So I do work with mostly it's wellness entrepreneurs, but I do get occasionally an outlier. And they can find me at igniteyourwellness.com. The your is with a UR, so it's igniteyourwellness.com. And on the website, they can, if they're interested, you can sign up for a free consult right now. There's no obligations, just to learn more about working with me if they're really interested. Or I have a free training. It's Get Clients Blueprint. They can go and download that. And then from the website, they can go to the podcast or follow me along on Instagram.
okay, perfect. Well, we'll make sure to have all your links in the show notes.
Mm-hmm.
This was a really great interview. So
Yeah,
I got a
thank you.
lot out of it. I'm sure if you're watching this, you learned a lot as well, not just about success, but or not just about monetary success, but about what true success looks like
Mm-hmm.
in having a full life balance.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I'll be sure to rewatch this just so I can, jot a few notes down and implement some of these things.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Allison. I really appreciate your time.
You too.